Hello and welcome to this edition of the live coverage that we're giving to the arrest of our colleague Marzia Hashemi over here at Press TV. Let me just give you a brief history of what's happened. Marzia Hashemi is in detention in the U.S. This happened on Sunday after she was to travel from the St. Louis airport, and then she was taken by the FBI to a detention facility in Washington, D.C. She's then been there for a week now. Apparently, they are keeping her there as material witness, and right now, she is giving testimony at that court. We're discussing the issue that has been going on in the past week with guests that are joining us within this program. Jason Unruhe in Ontario, it's been a week now. How do you react that she is still in jail, although she has actually asked for testimony twice?
Well, this is just simply absolutely nonsense. Is this the way that you treat someone who you're asking to cooperate with you? You lock them up, you shackle them, you violate their religious rights, you deny them the right to see their family. I mean, these are kinds of things that would be unacceptable to do to a prisoner, someone who had been convicted of a crime, and yet she's not on trial for absolutely anything, and they're treating her worse than what would legally be allowed to treat a criminal. This is absolutely disgusting. To look at this from the stance as though somehow the U.S. government was being altruistic here, it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it makes no sense to me that the United States government has, even any reason to look into Press TV to try to claim if it's some kind of propaganda outlet. I mean, on what basis? Press TV doesn't have an office in the United States. It's not broadcast on, as far as I know, any network in the United States. So on what basis do they have for claiming that they're a propaganda outlet that needs to register as a foreign agent? Maybe you might be able to make the argument that if another news organization, which there certainly have been, do have offices in the U.S., are on U.S. television, then maybe you could make the argument that they should have to register. But this has nothing to do with the U.S. Press TV does not have any business in the U.S. I mean, I'm certain there are people from the U.S. who come on and do talk, but this is not the same thing as running some kind of news agency within U.S. borders. Is that where the United States is now? It's not enough to make people who do broadcast there to register as foreign agents, but people who are literally not there, can they just now say, just choose any television station they want and just say, well, you have to register as a foreign agent, even though you're literally not here. You're not even a part of our society. Why? How does someone do that? Just arbitrarily choose someone overseas and demand that they register as a foreign agent? Can my government, can the Canadian government do that? Just demand that it just takes some television station in the U.S. that's not even broadcast in Canada and demand that they register as a foreign agent? Can Iran do the same thing? Can Iran just simply demand that CNN or Fox News or some other provider who may not even broadcast into Iran demand that they register as a foreign agent and call them a propaganda outlet? I mean, this is absolutely nonsense. Is this where the United States is now in terms of violating freedom of speech and the freedom of journalism to question authority, and even something as big as the United States, which is a global authority whose actions have consequences all over the world, that you can just simply try to intimidate someone like this? To Press TV, Hashemi, anyone who even questions the U.S. government, as someone who doesn't even operate within the United States or even within U.S. law? Is that where they feel? They feel that whatever domestic U.S. laws that the government has somehow is applicable internationally. And haven't we seen this, the same thing from the United States? The U.S. demands under U.S. law that the executive, the CFO of Huawei was violating U.S. law, but so somehow the foreign country of Canada was obligated to enforce U.S. domestic law in an international situation. Isn't this the same thing as the threats that are being used by the United States, that they unilaterally withdraw from the JCPOA agreement and then threaten other countries
Sure.
who don't even go along with it?
Jason, I just picked out something in the middle of your explanation. and that was a very good question that actually you pointed out. That is it. I'm going to put this question to Dr. Izadi right. This one from Mr. Jason Unruhe in Ontario. Jason, of course, I'd like to talk to you about both these issues, but I want you to begin with the human rights organizations within the U.S. that, to Dr. Izadi right here, are not up to what they should be doing at this time. Jason.
It's very interesting that you should mention this. This is a U.S. citizen. Is this not a person who is guaranteed the same rights and protections by the Constitution and any other kinds of laws in the United States? Is she not, a U.S. citizen entitled to these rights? Where is the ACLU in this case? Have they made a statement on this? Have they sent lawyers demanding that she be released? So why have they been so quiet? Why has the media in general been so very quiet? It's hard to find even a single mainstream outlet in the United States that's even willing to talk about this measure. I mean, if this were, a regular U.S. citizen, and by that I mean a non-Muslim, actual, mainstream journalist, there would be a complete and outrageous, public outrage about this. The ACLU. Many journalists' organizations would be demanding that she be released. They would be coming down on. They would be accusing the U.S. government of racism and all of frankly, the improprieties and the inhumanities that they are guilty of in this situation. Yet we find them being completely silent when it's a journalist from another country, even though that they are a U.S. citizen, and that's the kind of like the oath or the foundation of their being is to protect U.S. citizens from the government. Why aren't journalist organizations in the United States condemning this? Why aren't they coming forward saying that this isn't right? It's all the alternative media. It's all the citizen journalists who are coming forward, who are demanding that she be released. Normally there are public, organizations which speak out on this kinds of thing, and we don't even find them even making, no, the silence is deafening. You can hear the crickets with the statements that they're not making, and it's tremendously hypocritical. Many of them can lament the loss of Jamal Khashoggi, but here they are with one.
Jason, I'd like to hear from you the reason you imagine why that is. Do you think that they are also intimidated by what's happened to Marzieh, or would you say that they don't believe in her cause whatsoever?
Well, this has to be a case of not believing in their cause whatsoever. Many journalists have been able in the U.S., those who are in the mainstream, those who are part of the elite of their publications, have been able to get away with all kinds of things, even including criminal acts. How many times has the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times quoted, really sensitive sources that outright violate U.S. law for them to even be able to get a hold of? And nothing happens to them, and nothing should happen to them in these cases. Yet we have someone from a media organization that merely counters the narrative that is put out by the establishment in the United States, and they're literally treated as criminals. This is absolutely unjust. As long as you are part of that mainstream narrative, as long as you parrot the line that's being put out by the different interests within the ruling class, then you have nothing to fear. But if you say something that they don't like, or challenges their position, or even rebukes it, then you're treated as a threat. If you say something on social media that counters the narrative, you're accused of being a Russian bot. I've personally been accused of being a Russian bot myself. And this extends into all kinds of media. If you're a citizen journalist, you're not part of the club. If you're from like an independent newspaper or some kind of broadcaster, you're not a part of the big club.
Not a part of that club. Yes, yes. Dr. Izadi.